So who here has played soccer competitively or recreationally, just by a show of hands? At some point in your life, okay. Good or five. Well, okay, well, I'm just trying to explain how U.S. soccer can expand and branch out to form distant bonds and relationships with different cultures and countries that play soccer. To essentially unite and form a sense of cohesion, form a sense of unity, and ultimately form a sense of world peace with these other nations. And in order for that to happen, U.S. soccer has to be relevant. And how does that relate to the audience? Well, U.S. soccer has broad social implications on the whole world, and it might directly or indirectly affect you guys, but there's a huge U.S. soccer fan base in America, and it wants to see the quality of the game improve. And with expansion and globalization, it can do so. And in terms of me being credible, I've played since I was 5 years old. Competitively, I started in high school, played for 4 years at Inwood Valley High School, and then I played here on the club team for about a year and a half. And my whole goal is to explain how soccer's relevance can eventually branch out and form world peace, but a number of things have to happen. The youth development programs have to improve. They have to put more of an emphasis on development as opposed to recreational purposes. We need to import foreign superstars and keep our U.S. men's national team playing domestically in the MLS. And we have to utilize soccer as a globalization technique as well. So overall, our youth system needs to improve. We need to put more emphasis on, as I said earlier, the developmental system. And according to the article, The Problems of Soccer in America by Derek Van Reenen, more kids play soccer than any other sport in American youth leagues, which is kind of ironic because we're still considered a tertiary sport, because MLB, NBA, NFL, all the other sports are around. And I think it's because they've been here longer, it's part of our culture, it's part of our heritage. Baseball's been here since the 30s, football, basketball in like the 50s, 60s, NFL, 70s, 80s, and it broke out from the AFL or something. And the MLS has been around here since the 90s. But according to the article, Is Soccer Destined to Become a National Pastime by the Huffington Post, the NFL has actually overtaken baseball in terms of our national pastime category. And they say in the next 20 years or so, according to the Huffington Post, that soccer will ultimately become our national pastime if things play out the way they should be. And I do think that soccer can expand and become relevant in the United States because we're a fairly multicultural, diverse society with a bunch of cultures that introduce new concepts and ideas. And a huge common interest within each of these cultures is soccer. And I just believe with an expansion of different players that we can, get better in the MLS, become more relevant, and expand, ultimately globalize. But we have to bring in foreign players, like the Ronaldinho, Henry's, Kaká's. It's like, big players from around the world. Bring them in, and they can boost our ratings. For example, Major League Soccer has boosted annual ratings from 2.8 million to 6 million last season, and the average game attendance from 17,000 to 18,500, according to the Wall Street Journal. And we also, so I guess importing foreign players is a huge part of expanding soccer. And we have to keep producing players at the developmental level, and we have to keep our national team players here. The U.S. men's national team, who played very well in the World Cup, got to the quarterfinals, or the round of 16 against Belgium, I forget. And we need to keep those players playing in the MLS, all of them, not just Michael Bradley, Clint Dempsey, and Landon Donovan, it's all of them. And the idea of keeping our domestic players here in the MLS, our homegrown international talents, it's backed up by the article, Can European Football Spur Interest in American Soccer by Sean Frederick Brown. He just reiterates the fact that to increase exposure, we have to keep homegrown international players here in the States. And just overall, soccer can be I believe that soccer can be that cultural bridge to ultimately expand and globalize, especially in the third world countries that, they can't afford much, and a huge common interest there is soccer, and it'd just be a great way to form a nice relationship and a bond with these kind of countries through soccer to globalize. And ultimately this will form a sense of world peace that we do that is kind of essential for the world. And overall, to reiterate my main points, the biggest point is to become relevant, we have to improve our youth development system. We have to get better. We have to put emphasis on the developmental process as opposed to the recreational process, because people tend to branch out into other sports. They use, recreational soccer as kind of a foundational tool to go into like the other sports, an athletic foundation for fun, enjoyment, as opposed to truly developing as a player and getting better. And importing the international players is very important to boost the ratings, and keeping our domestic players, our U.S. men's national team players here, to improve the quality of play, to ultimately get better, become more relevant, and have more viewers from around the world that watch the MLS, as opposed to some people in America that decide to watch it when they're not watching the NBA, NFL, MLB. And I think it relates, maybe not to you guys specifically, but it relates to the whole U.S. fan base. Everybody wants to watch the sport. The sport is growing, so it's an important part there. And just ultimately, I feel like the U.S. soccer in America, we need to get with the program. We need to understand that the social implications, it's a global phenomenon, it's a big sport, and in order for us to improve, we have to be relevant. Thank you.